Welcome back to Why We Nurse. I'm your host, Serena Tobar, and today we're diving into a topic that affects every nurse: burnout, resilience, and leadership. My guest today is Shantrice Winston, a nurse who has worn many hats: clinician, educator, leader, and now works as a healthcare consultant, helping organizations and individuals heal from burnout, build emotional intelligence, and create sustainable leadership practices. If you've ever felt exhausted, undervalued, or wondered how to lead with heart, this conversation is for you. Shantrice, welcome to Why We Nurse. Tell us about your journey. What roles have you held in nursing, and what led you to transition into consulting?
Well, first and foremost, thank you so much for having me, Serena. I was listening to the introduction. I was like, who is she talking about? That can't be me. But thank you for having me. Yes, I have been in nursing this year for 24 years. Still can't believe it's been that long. I've been from the bedside, critical care, trauma is my background at the bedside, and then from education to leadership to the boardroom and other organizational roles. I love nursing. It is now my calling. I didn't initially want it to be a nurse. I thought I wanted to be a pharmacist, but God had other plans, and I've realized that this was my calling, and now I would rather not do anything else. But I did notice the higher I went into nursing and into boardroom and into leadership roles, that people were just so disconnected from themselves, from the patients. And I needed to figure out another way to be able to still nurse and love what I did and be able to reconnect. And so, with that being said, I responded by I did take some time off to just kind of reset and figure out what does my next steps look like? What does this look like for me in a career? How do I help individuals and organizations lead intentionally? That is what my the basis of my company, Enam Healthcare Consultant, is built on. Thriving isn't optional, it is intentional. But how do we intentionally do that? And so I created my consulting company. I do both individual and organizational strategies. I give them assessments and tools to help them figure out where the barriers currently are in the organization and within self. And then how do we implement long-term strategies that stay sustainable to be able to continue to do that. Also getting individuals to understand that career, leadership, and life go hand in hand. If I am not a person that is feeling successful in my career, or if I have all of these barriers, it makes it very difficult for me to show up and do what I need to do for my organization. And so that's my entire mission and goal, is to be able to help everybody understand that those things coexist as one. And how do we work together to make one sufficient to make the other sustainable?
Oh, that's really powerful insights there that you have, and I hope that you are able to reach out to more and more organizations to help get some of that sustainable leadership, because I feel like that's something that we are really needing in nursing right now is really um, intentional and sustainable leadership.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it starts from the your leaders is what sets the culture and the tone of your organization. And if the leadership is not on the same page, if they're not exuding a culture of peace, if they're not exuding a culture of health first, self care is important, compassionate, and being intentional with those things, then it's very difficult for the people that they lead to have those behaviors if it doesn't start at the top.
Exactly. And sometimes people get into leadership positions. Maybe they are great clinicians, maybe they are great charge nurses, but then they become managers, they become directors, and they don't have support and growth opportunities. And so they don't. Sometimes people just don't know how to be a leader. There are very few people that go in there and they're just natural leaders. But there's a lot of really great leaders who who can be developed. Right, and if we give them that chance to develop and grow and learn how to lead and learn how to lead with purpose and with heart, then it's gonna make the entire organization successful.
You're exactly right. As I, got into education and started getting in more into leadership, I realized many of us were not. we were voluntold into leadership. It started that day you showed up on the unit, you're the most experienced, they need a charge nurse, and it's like, here's the charge phone. And, now you're the charge nurse, and then after that, you're just kind of the charge nurse. And then that kind of gives you avenues to be able to explore other options, and you still continue to grow in these leadership roles. Because most organizations, let's be honest, they like to promote from within. But nobody ever took the time to sit down and give real leadership classes, real leadership strategies. I was a product of it, and so many things I didn't know or understand about being a leader, about being simple things like communication will make or break a leadership team, will make or break that bond, not understanding leadership, different leadership types. And so with my business, the classes and the consultants that I offer, I literally come in and will spend a 6 to 8 hour day with an organization and say, okay, let's figure out the barriers. Let's start back to simple things like communication basics. Do the individuals on your team know their communication styles? Because that goes a long way. I know I am a very direct communicator. I'm going to say it and that's it. And there's not going to be any fluff and puff or anything else around it. If I'm communicating with another direct communicator, that works great. But if I'm communicating with somebody who is more of a passive communicator, I have just totally offended them, not knowing, not doing it intentionally, but because I didn't have the fluff and the puff and I didn't take time to like sit with them, I've totally offended them. So now we have a barrier in our communication that never should have been. And it's simply not understanding how your communication styles are different and where you need to pivot. Because I am a direct communicator, I now know if I am communicating with somebody that's passive, I need to sit down, I need to get eye level with them, and I need to give them my undivided attention. That means putting the phone down, closing the laptop, all of those things, and giving my undivided attention. Likewise, leadership styles. You need to know what type of leadership style you have and what type of personalities you have on your team. Another thing that us as leaders don't always get. And so, yes, I'm a leader by title, but I don't know that I have a dominant leadership style and that it comes off as offensive and that I need to figure out how do I reach my team? How do I become personable with my team? But if I'm never taught those skills, I don't have them and I don't know them. And that's when leadership breaks down. And so you have that, but then you also have the C-suite side of leadership that is about the outcomes, the productivity. And so you're trying to figure out as a person that didn't get what I needed to be an effective leader, I'm trying to figure out how I make the C-suite happy and I keep the outcomes and the productivity and the HCAP scores, but at the same time still be personable with my team and still be able to address their needs and be compassionate with it. And I think that's where, especially in leadership, exhaustion and the burnout come because how do I navigate both worlds and keep what I need done over here and done over here and somehow merge them together?
Very, very important. And we talked about that on the previous episode. We were talking about just like people have love languages, they have appreciation languages, they have communication languages, and we don't all speak the same language. And so, learning how to, just like you said, pivot and understand who you're speaking with and how they need to be communicated to is very, very important, and I've seen it
Absolutely.
firsthand. You can shut somebody down in a single word almost.
And sometimes it don't even have to take a word, it's a look. If I'm coming to talk to you and your face is bent up, the RBF as they say, and your arms across your chest, um, come off as very unapproachable. And so odds are whatever I was coming to tell you, I'm not about to say it now because I don't even feel like I can approach you. And so figure out what that looks like so that we're able to keep those lines of communication open is difficult to navigate. And so which is why as organizations, I feel there needs to be more emphasis put on how to sustain a leader, how to make them resilient, how do we redesign our systems so that they're resilient, so that they're given the tools and the strategies they need to be successful. And they're not just feeling like I'm just winging it and I'm figuring it out day to day.
Exactly. Was there a specific turning point when you realized that burnout was not just an individual issue, but rather a systemic one?
Yes. When I started seeing individuals that I know are competent, compassionate about their roles, but just exhausted, not feeling successful in their roles, being you can see that they're clearly depleted. Um, and nobody wakes up every day and come to work and say, I don't want to be compassionate or I don't want to be resilient, but I'm exhausted. And sometimes we have to stop and pause and say, okay, is it the person that's broken or is it the system that is broken? Um, when we're allowed to rest, when we're allowed to be human, then we figure out how do we set boundaries? How do we be resilient? How do we come back? And so for me, it was literally watching individuals that I know knew their jobs in and out, knew that were competent, they had the credentials, they had the expertise, but they weren't performing, they weren't getting the outcomes because they were exhausted and they did not understand how to work within the system to get that resiliency back, how to get work within the system to set the boundaries to be able to become really successful in their teams. And so for me, um, I had to stop and take a pause and take a break myself because I know my capabilities. I know I'm competent. I know I'm compassionate about nursing. But when it got to the point where I was unhappy every day, I'm exhausted, I'm crying, then I know I'm not being effective and efficient for my team, my patients, or my organization. And so I need to pause and figure out how do I get that resiliency back? How do I get that positivity back about a career that I love to be able to pass that on to each other?
Great insight, because I have experienced that myself, and I finally it took a little while for me to stop and say, "You're burnt out. You're burnt out, and this organization is not providing you with resources to combat that burnout." And it was during COVID and that time coming out of the COVID, pandemic, and it was just constantly at that time I was in education, but it was just constantly, "Now we gotta shift to this, now we gotta shift to that, and now this is on your plate, and now you gotta do all those things, plus you gotta do this. Oh, and then oh, we don't have anybody else to do this, so you gotta do this too." And but there was never a thank you. There was never a, "We appreciate what you're doing. We understand that you're working so hard." There was never any of that, and it really led to some resentment for the organization because
Absolutely.
I'm like, "Here I am giving you 150% and you can't even tell me thank you."
Yeah, and a pizza party and a new coffee cup, a water bottle doesn't always fix it. Like, we need to see your face, like, we need to see your presence, we need to feel your presence, we need to and sometimes it's that simple emotional connection, when you can see your leader, your CNO, your CEO come and walk those halls, and say, "I see you, and you're doing a great job." Not just sending some pizza to the unit because there's no personal ability in that. It's just literally, if pizza was dropped off and then, it still goes back to kind of that feeling, this is what you signed up for, and I didn't sign up for this. Like, um, COVID, it did something totally different. The amount of yes, we know we in healthcare, people are going to die. It happens, it's a part of the cycle of life. But for the amount of death that people were seeing on a daily basis, it's unhealthy. And you can't tell me that there isn't residual and PTSD and some emotional draining from that. That organizations never paused and stopped and said, okay, how do we help our staff? Do we increase with their EAP benefits and give them additional counseling sessions? Do we enforce that, at least you need to go do 2 or 3 visits just to get it out, just to talk and make it help us re-survive? It never happened. We literally there was loss and there was no pause after it. It just was everything picked up and supposed to go back to normal. And so, yeah, you're right. It does cause resentment and it does cause burnout. I hate to say it, but I feel like in our profession, sometimes we normalize self neglect, for lack of better words. You just keep going and you keep doing, and you never really stop and take that time.
Yeah, we've almost glamorized that being that martyr, being that nurse martyr. "Oh, I haven't peed this whole shift. Oh, I haven't eaten. I haven't" and we joke about it and we kinda glamorize it, and it's like, "But no, we are human beings, and those are normal bodily functions."
Right. And it's reality because even when you when you leave the bedside, like I know I've trained my bladder. I can hold 2 liters easy. Like I can hold 2 liters. I had, 16 years to practice it, but it's not normal. It's not okay. It's not, you find yourself inattentionally fasting. Like, what you mean a 12-hour fast? Psh, I can do that with my eyes closed. I've done it for years, but it's not okay. And we have literally like glamorize neglecting ourselves. It's part of the job.
Oh,
And
and
I think we really have to take.
I've been the one to do that, and now I have bladder issues and, other things, but, you know, there was one time, and y'all are gonna really laugh at this, but there was one time I was sitting at the I was getting ready to give some medications, and I was in there with the patient. I had all the medications, and all of a sudden, I knew if I didn't get to the bathroom within the next 30 seconds, there was gonna be a problem, and I just, like, told the patient, "I'll be right back," and I grabbed all the medications and I ran out the room.
That's
But
it.
we're humans and we have to sit there and say, "Hey, I understand that, patient care is important." And there are times, I mean, if it's the middle of CPR, that's probably not the time to say, "I gotta stop and go to the bathroom."
Have you ever
But
done have you ever given chest compressions while you gotta go to the bathroom? It's not fun.
it's not fun.
No.
But But sometimes we can tell the patient, "Okay, I'm gonna go grab your cup of coffee and your blanket. Give me 10 minutes, okay? Take 2 minutes to go to the restroom and then go to get the blanket and the
Yeah,
coffee."
yeah,
The patient is gonna be okay if they had to wait a couple of extra minutes for their
yes.
blanket and coffee.
You are
We
absolutely
have to
correct.
stop glamorizing that.
Oh, you're absolutely correct.
So, how did your experience in education and leadership shape your perspective on nurse well-being?
Crazy enough, like literally leading back into what we just talked about, like education, being in education and leadership just shows me, especially education and residency and dealing with that, how much we normalize self neglect early on. Um, that we tell our residents when they coming in that they have to be resilient and there are going to be some shifts that's going to be hard, but you come back the next day and you come back fighting and swinging another day. Don't take work home, leave home at work, which is humanly impossible because it's the same person whether I'm at home or I'm at work. But we normalize that self-neglect, and I think we need to go back to, and even in leadership roles, we need to go back to normalizing self-care. Normalizing that when you've had that hard shift or that rough shift, that there is a moment that you can debrief, that there is a moment that you can resettle. I know we do shift reports, but maybe at shift reports, there needs to be a shift debrief where the emotions of the day are allowed to get out, where people are allowed to say how they felt so that they are able to leave it at work and not take it home. Um, make a part of the education for our new hires, our new grads, people coming in, make self-care a part of that education. And what does that look like? Give them the coping skills early on and in the beginning because we don't get that. We just don't get our well-being. It's left up to us to figure out what that looks like. But if I'm a new person coming into this field or I'm a new person coming into leadership, I don't know what that looks like. And so I need the tools and the resources to be able to understand that. And so I think we need to go back to training on how to survive, how to sustain, how to take care of self, because you can't pour from an empty cup. And we don't do a great job of doing that in education or in leadership.
And some of these nurses coming into the nurse residencies, sometimes this is the very first job they've ever had. They've never had a
Listen,
job before. This is very heavy for to be, for it to be your first job and then you get on your own, you're off of orientation, it's very exciting at first and all those feelings, that imposter syndrome hits and they don't know because they've never had a real job before. They don't know how to do those things to make themselves resilient, the self-care. Sometimes for me, self-care is I just drive home in silence so I can reflect, I can release the energy from the day, and then by the time I get home, then I'm ready to be home and present for my family.
Exactly. Exactly. I know when I was, um a lot of my release in the evenings when I got off, and this is even carried over to leadership, I did one or 2 things. I'm either gonna go to the gym, and in my previous role, a gym was literally 10 feet from my office. So if I knew I just had that day, I always kept gym clothes in my little cubby, and then I would just go to the gym and work out for an hour and just kinda woosah. When you're on the treadmill, people don't know if you're sweating or crying. So you can kinda get it all out for the day, and just woosah. Or if I didn't have if that time wasn't allowed it, I just roll home in my car with the loudest music on and just sung my little heart out, but something to release that day because I found it spilling over into my kids, into my marriage, and all of those other things. Because you get to a place where you carrying so much, it's like that champagne bottle, and I'm just one shake away from the cork popping because I never was able to release that. So I totally agree. Figuring out how do we intertwine that into education and into leadership, almost requirements when we put everything else on there. Evaluation, that self-care is a part of that percentage of what that look like. Like I can honestly say that this person's practiced self-care. Like I've seen them take the PTO day. I've seen, feel like that should be a part of that criteria as well. S To put the emphasis on you have to take care of yourself. Does that make sense?
Yes. And self-care doesn't necessarily have to be, the mud mask and the cucumbers on your eyes. I know we think a lot of that when we say self-care, a bubble bath but self-care can be going and seeing your primary care physician and making sure that you get those quote wool changes and tune-ups, or
Yep,
staying on top of your own health, going and having lunch with your family,
something. Yep.
staying home all day and reading a book. It doesn't have to be mud masks and cucumbers.
No, and I'm not a mud mess girl anyway. I don't want mud on my face, and I only want cucumbers with salad dressing. Like that's not my thing. But finding out your thing. All of our thing is different. Lately I've got into journaling, which I've written 2 of those as well. Shameless plug, they're both on Amazon. But journaling is a good thing. Coloring, adult coloring. And they actually have the adult coloring books that's the adult words in them. And so you find that page that represents how you feel for that day and you color it and make it pretty. But whatever your thing is, figuring out what that thing is and keeping that sacred and that safe space and scheduling it. That was a big thing for me, especially as I got further into leadership is scheduling that time, like scheduling, putting it on my calendar like everything else, like every other meeting, every other project was due, was scheduling my time. Like, okay, on this day, on this time, this is my 60 minutes that I'm not answering emails, I'm not looking at text messages, phone calls, any of that. I'm literally just going to be in my bubble for this time. And so we just have to, again, give those tools and strategies of what that actually looks like.
Yes. What misconceptions do you think people have about burnout?
Um, First and foremost, I think one of the biggest misconceptions is if that you are burned out or you're admitting into it, you're weak. And that's the furthest thing from it. Admitting that you're burned out, it actually makes you strong because it actually allows you to know that there's a barrier and an issue. And then now what do I do to get that issue fixed? How do I now figure out what coping looks like? I also think the another misconception to burnout is people don't realize it's burnout a lot of times presents in the somatic symptoms. So it's not the person that looks tired or the person that's not combing their hair, their scrubs are wrinkled. It's that person that always has a headache, that person that has stomach issues, that person that is appears to be angry, that person that's the first one in and the last one out, the person that is spending extra time charting. That's your burnout. It doesn't always show up in those obvious signs. A lot of it is somatic. And so if you have that nurse or you have that coworker that always has a headache, something else is going on with this individual, and more than likely it is burnout. If you have that coworker that you know that have lost somebody recently, things like that are happening. They are burned out. Um, so take away the misconception that it is a weakness. It is absolutely not weakness to admit you're burned out. It is your strength. It is how you get your power back. It is how you get your resiliency back. It's how you're able to come back and be productive and get what needs to be done to take care of your patients, and also take away the misconception that is always visible, because sometimes it's just a somatic symptom that is recurring. What I will say, if you're having the somatic symptoms, the constant headaches, the chest discomfort, the shortness of breath feeling, any of those things, go get checked out. Because first and foremost, we want to make sure that there's nothing else going on and is your health is stable. But once you've done those things and you still having those issues and they haven't figured out the next plan, then the next thing you need to do, I am a firm believer, admit you're burned out, use your EAP benefits and get somebody to talk to. You're not alone in this. We're all in it together, but definitely use your benefits. Therapy helps, and it doesn't make you again crazy, and it doesn't make you weak. It makes you strong, and it makes that um, it's your PI project. We good at doing quality and PI for our units. You make yourself your PI project. You figured out the barrier, figure out what you need to fix it, and then execute and evaluate.
Yes, exactly. So your consulting focuses a lot on emotional intelligence and healing. Why are these so critical for nurses and for leaders?
Can't pour from an empty cup. If you're exhausted, if you're burned out, you're emotionally detached, you're never going to get the sustainable outcomes that you're looking for. From a leadership perspective, your retention is going to be poor, your turnover is going to be high, your team performance is not going to be great. From an individual standpoint, and if you are not whole, you can't help anybody else. And so for me, using my own pain to now be purpose, being transparent about what I've went through, being transparent about the things that I've seen in teams and other individuals, and literally seeing teams and individuals break down and disband because of it. Yes, my goal and I strive on helping them understand that sustainability comes from being whole and healthy from the inside out. And so I will continue to do that in any avenue, in any aspect that I'm allowed to be able to give that.
Do you have a favorite exercise or mindset shift that you recommend for nurses who are feeling overwhelmed?
Um, I would say first and foremost, journal. Just and it doesn't have to be something formal. You don't have to go spend money on one. You can get a notebook and just start writing out your day. At the end of the day, your pause, you keep it in your car and you write out what went really great that day, where there may be some improvements for that day, and then what's my next plan of execution. Start small. Start with small things like that. Um, Find meaningful quotes that mean something to you. Write them on your bathroom wall. Put them on sticky notes. Put them in your work bag, whatever that looks like. But start small. And then once you figured it out, start it small and start resetting your mind and how your mind thinks, and then you can move on to other things. You can always reach out to me or visit my website at enomhc.com. I created an e-guide. It's called Choosing Peace, 5 steps, no matter what role you're in. And it's literally just 5 steps on an e-guide on the PDF that you can download. that'll help you walk through what the steps are today. Those are what I tell you people, how I tell people to start. Something organized, something small, create a pattern and a habit. It takes 21 days to do that. And that puts you on that track to resetting and getting back to you.
That's, um that's actually something I think I'm gonna check out. I like
Okay.
that. I know
Okay.
myself, I've tried journaling and I'm like, I open up and I'm like, "Okay, what do I write? Am I doing like Dear Diary? This is how I feel." It's like, I don't know, I guess I've always felt very awkward journaling, and maybe that's not my, self-care thing, but I'm
Got
definitely
it.
gonna check out your guided,
Don't worry about
steps.
it. Don't worry about it. As having me today, I will send it to you. It'll come to you in a link will come to you, digital download. Your thanks to me would just be like, put the word out, tell them to go to my site and go get it. But I will definitely send it to you and is 5 steps. And I'm a person like you. I agree. If I just open and start writing, Imma be off on a tangent somewhere, and now I'm talking about restaurants and all kinda because my brain just not gonna stay focused, but if I have a guided reflection is something that I'm supposed to do and a question that I'm supposed to answer, that works a little bit better for me, that's how my brains work, so that's how I designed that one. But yes, I'll send you that one, and then there's 2 other ones, I wrote Lead in Peace, Not Pieces, and, Becoming Whole, both of those are on Amazon, so if, choosing peace, speaks to you, you can go to Amazon and get the other 2. But yeah, I definitely need structure. I need to have my S bar. Like,
Yes.
structure.
Yes. So let's talk about leadership. What
Mhm.
role does vulnerability and authenticity play in leadership?
It builds trust. Um, and not just nurses. People don't look for perfect leaders. They look for honest ones. They look for ones that can be vulnerable. They look for ones to say, I walked this path and this is what I did. They also need visible ones, and they need ones that are intentional. I intentionally see you, and you're not alone. When I got in the leadership role, especially like my one-on-ones, um, we started off every one-on-one. Either I brought a collection of cards from Amazon, and it was just like icebreakers one-on-one. And so you pull a card, and then we would discuss what's on the card before we got into anything else. And it was always something just to kind of crack the ice. All of my leadership meetings didn't start with, okay, this is the problems, this is what we saw. No, we spent the first, usually 15 minutes. What were your wins for the week? What great is going on? Are there any things that are happening right now that somebody on your team can help you and assist you with? And I think that's where it starts. So I didn't want them to I'm not just your leader. I see you as a person. When things started shifting and changing in them, I pull them in the office. Hey, we're gonna do a one-on-one tomorrow. And when they get in there, I'm like, I just want to know what's going on with you. Like, talk to me. I see the sadness in your face. And it went a long way with them. I knew my team had my back 9,000%. But they knew I also had this. Um, Also, sometimes asking the why questions when policies or procedures or um, just certain directives were coming from leadership, and I would bring it back to my team, and they were like, "Well, why are we doing that? Why we don't try this?" And I'm like, "You know what? I don't know, but let's figure it out." So being able to go back and say, I brought this to my team, and I know from an executive position, this made really sense, but the team is saying that we may need to try this. Can we do that? And it also let them know that I always had their back in Gateway. So as a leader, you have to be vulnerable. You have to be willing to, and you have to be willing to say when you made a mistake and when you were wrong and be able to authentically apologize for that. And your team has to trust you. Without those 2 things, it's going to be very hard to get your team where they need to be or where you expect.
Okay, Shantrice, if you could give one piece of advice to nurse leaders listening today, what would it be?
Don't wait until your team completely breaks to care. Um, Lead like people's lives matter because they truly do. And you never know what's that one more thing that could cost somebody their life. So don't wait. When you see it's falling apart, start caring and start asking the right questions. And always let your team know that they're people first and they matter.
Shantrice, thank you for sharing your wisdom and experience. Your journey reminds us that nursing isn't just about caring for others, it's about caring for ourselves and leading with intention. To all the nurses and leaders listening, burnout is real, but so is healing. And leadership isn't about perfection, it's about creating a space for people to thrive. Follow at Why We Nurse on Facebook and Instagram for updates and behind the scenes content. Got a story to share or want to be a guest? Email me at whywenursepodcast@gmail.com. Until next time, stay strong, stay compassionate, and remember why you nurse.